Good morning, brothers and sisters, and good afternoon or evening in the rest of the world. Welcome to
Morning,
today's.
Billy. Good morning.
Yes, very good to see so many of you now. All right. Welcome to the Q&A, question and answer Zoom meeting of Recollections number 3, which was talking about mental proliferation. But we are free to discuss about any other topic. If the question is a bit long, then I can postpone it to the next meeting. I hope to do this as perhaps every 2 weeks and find a suitable time for as many people as possible. I guess Malaysia Sunday morning is good enough, but there are many of you who have to attend Dharma sessions on Sunday morning, so some may miss it. Okay, without further ado, let's get on with the questions. So I'll answer top 10 questions already pre-posted. Any one of you have any other questions or anything to clarify, please feel free to type in the chat box. And if it is about what I'm saying and you need clarification, let me finish the end of the slide and then I'll ask if anyone needs clarification. Okay, so let's get started with the first. Okay. Oh, I think it's hard to see. So if you clip it down. Okay. If everything is experiential, how was air or breath of life created? I think this question came from someone who may have misunderstood my statement. Uh, what what I actually pointed out important is that there are four imponderables, okay, that the Buddha mentioned. And amongst them is the power of the Buddha, the experience of jhana, how karma vipaka works. And this question relates to the number 4, speculation about origin, uh, extent, or nature of the cosmos, which is physical existence. So we cannot speculate how it all started. Therefore, how was air or breath of life created? We don't really know. Okay. Now, what actually
Brother
happened?
Billy,
Yes.
this was a question actually sent by Maria Jimenez. So this is the question, Maria. Brother Billy is answering your question.
I haven't finished answering all the questions because there's some more. Let me go on further. Okay, is that all right? Okay. So if breathing is key to maintaining emotional balance and is the breath that gives us life and death occurs when we stop breathing, then does air exist or is it an illusion? Is the experience of breathing existential or experiential? Now, I think this is probably, I think, is a misunderstanding of my statement. I didn't say everything is experiential. That's not my statement. What I actually said, uh, what I said is that the Buddha's teaching is experiential. So when we think of the Buddha's teaching, we must think of it from an experiential perspective. So it is all about how we experience the world around us. It's not about how the world exists, but how we experience it. Of course, the samsaric human realm that we are in is made of physical matter. Hence, we call this existence. But when we try to understand the teachings of the Buddha, it is very important that we apply an experiential mindset. That means we look at things happening as an experience, rising, falling. Yeah, that's really what I meant. I hope that answers the question. Okay, if there are no further comment, I'll move on. Then there is a next question about, can words be considered to have the power to change emotions and thoughts? Most definitely. Words are in fact very powerful, and words you speak to yourself, That is really key, right? So most definitely in the form of positive self-talk or positive affirmation. When you talk to yourself, that really helps you or hurts you depending on what you say to yourself. So it's important to keep self-talk positive. That's why they call it positive self-talk. There's also another way. Talk to yourself in a way like assurance, or talk to yourself like some form of helping yourself, as though you are another person. So you're helping that person. So helping yourself. So that is called positive affirmation, affirming to yourself. Okay. It is said that if we don't identify these mental images and thoughts, we will be free to react.
Yeah, so, and I just thought, you don't mind, you can start go out to just deliver the water. I want to wash my clothes. Thank you. Give me a helping hand. Thank you, Lisha.
Can you all mute your mic if you're not participating in the meeting? Okay, good. Any questions about that? Okay. Someone asked me to go back. Is there something I need to go back? No. Okay, I'll continue. It is said that if we don't identify with these mental images, thoughts, we will be free to react to extreme emotions. And only the middle path will keep us balanced. This thing
Yes.
this thing about identifying with images is not a good thing, because you are personalizing. You see something, you appreciate what it is, but then you start to connect with it by saying, oh, I see this, I like this. All this connecting, identifying yourself with the images may not be helpful, because it makes you personalize. And Bande refers to the word upadana as thinking, which is made of two words, upa and adana. Upa means bringing into.
Alicia. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you all mute your mic if you're not participating in the meeting? Okay. So upa means bringing inwards. Okay. Adana is the opposite of dana. Dana is giving. Adana means receiving. So upa adana is whatever you experience, you cling it on as, oh, I like this, I am experiencing it. You're actually clinging on, you're making attachments to whatever you are experiencing, and that is not good. It is important to learn to let go. And that letting go is the middle way. The two extremes are you experience something and then you feel it is helpful to you, it's good for you. It's good to realize something is helpful, but then don't cling on to it and say, I like this. Allow it to help you, but don't turn it into liking or disliking. That is one extreme. The other extreme is that if something that is unpleasant and it hurts you, again, think of it as a lesson. Think of something you learn from. Think of it as something that is not helpful, but you learn something from it. But don't say, that, oh, I hate this, I want to get rid of it. So these are the two extremes, and the middle way basically is learn to let go. And if it is something that helps you, learn from it, realize that you learned something, treasure the learning, but let go the clinging on to the images. Okay. So there are a few methods I teach the people in the prison as well as to the general public in my mental health programs, how we can let go. Three methods. The first method is to use this, well, never mind, and with a hand gesture, using the hand gesture to wave it off. Well, never mind. Is a way of letting it go and non-clinging onto it. The second method is that whenever something arises, it either hurts you or helps you and makes you excited. In other words, it arouses your emotion one way or another. Pause, do not react to it. Relax, and then think about it. I'll come to these in more details in a moment. These three methods. The third method is the 5 ways to calm emotional thoughts. And Bante Punaji has actually spoken about this, and written about it in his book. Arya Magga Bhavana level 1. At the end there, on this Vitaka Santana Sutra. But unfortunately, Bante uses the old style Pali Sutra reference, so he doesn't mention Majjhima Nikaya 20. But that is actually Majjhima Nikaya 20. And if you want to see Bante's exact translation from the Arya Magga Bhavana level 1 book, there is a link here you can actually use, tiny.cc/mn20-punaji. Then you can see Bante Punaji's Arya Magga Bhavana translations of Majjhima Nikaya 20. Now, on method number 1, this, well, never mind. By waving your hand out, waving it, and like as though you are releasing a butterfly or releasing a bird, freeing the bird, this physical action is very, because the physical action, when the brain senses there is this physical action of moving the hand, the brain actually triggers triggers a set of neurons called the mirror neuron, and that mirror neuron triggers a reaction in your mind itself. So if you happen to carry a thought that is unpleasant at the time when you say, well, never mind, it has the power of releasing that thought. It may not release completely, but at least it releases it without a lot of so-called clinging, without so much as clinging on and attaching to the thought. So it's one way of letting go. So this is a very simple, helpful exercise. So, well, never mind, and use your hand to wave it away. Wave it like releasing a butterfly or releasing a bird. Okay, so that is the first technique that is very helpful. The prison inmates, they really like.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Chạm bé rắc.
Can
You put outside
everybody
it.
mute the mic,
Brother
please?
Billy, Brother Billy, you can mute them, Brother Billy. You can
Okay,
Mute them, Brother Billy.
okay.
Go to the attendance and you can mute them.
Yeah. Okay. Mute them all.
Participants.
There are two that you can mute. You need to mute.
So I think I've muted already. Okay. Yeah, I think I've muted all already. Okay. So back to this. Yeah. Back to this technique. So this waving of the hand is really like releasing a butterfly. This creates a connection between the brain and the hand, and that connection triggers an activity in the mind that is mirroring that physical action. So it is a mental action. That mental action that mirrors the physical action mirrors the releasing of the thought. So if you happen to be carrying an unhappy thought, if somebody just said something unpleasant, like just now, people are shouting and screaming over the unmuted mic, and I feel a little bit unpleasant about it, I can just say, well, never mind, and then let it go. So this waving of the hand, like releasing a butterfly, releasing a bird or whatever, is very helpful. So that is one technique. Okay, before I move on to the second technique, any question on this first technique, and especially the connection with the thing called mirror neuron? This is the psychosomatic connection. Mind and body are interconnected. Psycho is the mind, somatic is the body, so they're interconnected. What you do with your body affects your mind. What happens inside the mind affects your body. All right, so if there are no more questions on this first technique, then the second technique, that is putting it into practice, and that is putting mindfulness into action. And whenever something arises that hurts your feeling or makes you excited that you really enjoy it so much, learn to pause. Do not react, because your body is very excited now, anxious. If it is something unpleasant, you are feeling unhappy about it. it's hurting you. Or if it is something enjoyable, like some people enjoy, let's say in the case of Malaysia, people enjoy durian. The moment they taste a very nice durian, wow, they get excited. Or in the case of a Spanish community, somebody happens to cook the most tastiest adobo, and you taste it. Oh, you love that adobo, and you feel that excitement. So either excitement or disappointment or whatever, you have some emotional arising. By pausing and not reacting right away, allowing time for this emotional excitement and anxiety to calm down, no matter whether you are excited because it is something wonderful, right? The tastiest durian or the tastiest adobo, or it is something hurtful or harmful, very spicy food that hurts you, hurts your tongue and your nose and your body, then uh, there's a lot of stress hormone released in your body because it triggers a stress reaction because the amygdala senses there is some threat and triggers the stress reaction. So there's a lot of stress hormone flooding through your body. By pausing and not reacting for a moment, you are allowing time for both the emotional part to calm down and the hormones to subside and allow it to drain away by itself. Okay. And not only that, you can help to speed it along by actually doing some exercises to relax further. And one of the best exercises at any moment, anywhere, anyhow, is breathing. Take a deep breath in slowly, and then another deep, releasing the breath slowly. So when you slow down your breathing, there is a effect, to slow down your heart rate and your blood pressure, bring down your blood pressure. So take deep breaths slowly, breathing in slowly and then breathing out slowly. That helps. That relaxes the body, and by doing that, it calms the mind also, compose the mind. It's only then you can now enter into the third step, which is think, and introspect. Bring your attention inwards and ask yourself purposefully, focus on how you can help resolve a problem if there is a problem. Helpful, beneficial response to the problem. And this introspection and thinking is a form of wisdom, and that is yoniso manasikara, wise attention. Okay. So this is the second technique. The third one, you just go to the sutra and then you can see. This is my paraphrasing. Okay. I just want to point out this is not Bante's translation. It's my paraphrasing. You can read Bante's translation from the link I gave you. My paraphrasing is transforming it into a very practical way. And this is what I actually use in the prison to help the prison inmates. So the first is to change the channel in your mind, refocus your mind by thinking about pleasant things, right? Thinking about not things that make you excited, but things in the past, memory of a pleasant experience. By thinking about that, you take your mind away from the current unpleasant thought that may be arising. Okay, so recollecting those helps you. So the first is to change the channel in your mind. Another way of changing the channel is to do something different, right? Take a walk. That's one of the easiest way. This is what I also teach to the prison inmates, because within the prison they have restriction on what else they can do. All of them are staying in dormitories, so they can actually take a walk. They don't have individual cells. They're not locked up in individual cells. They all live in a dormitory. Each dormitory has between 50 to 100 inmates per dormitory. So they do have some freedom to walk around, even within the dormitory or outside the dormitory during normal hours. They're not restricted inside the dormitory. So they can walk around. So I say, take a walk. That's one of the best ways. When you're getting stressed, take a walk. We can do that in our real life too. The second is, if these negative thoughts are causing you to want to do something unwholesome one way or another, or make you like it so much you want more, consider the harmfulness, right? Reflect on the consequences, the dangers, and the harmful effects. And overeating durian, I mean, that is not good for your health, right? And think of the unhealthy consequences. In the same way, when you overeat too much of adobo, that's also not very helpful for your health. It's too oily and all that. So think of the health consequences if it is something that makes you really enjoy and excited. So this is another way of letting go. Then there's a real exercise you can do to withdraw your attention from evil thoughts or whatever thoughts that are hurting you or causing a lot of excitement in you. You want to really let it go. So meditation is one of them. And focusing on thoughts, relinquishing them, doing meditation, breathing exercises, all that, yoga and all that, that is all helpful. Abandoning these bad thoughts by consciously doing meditation, releasing, freeing your mind from clinging on to any thoughts. Another is to do something physically that is relaxing and relieving. And one of the most powerful things I teach people to do is laughter yoga. So when you are getting a little bit stressed, just do something to help yourself laugh a bit. If you need triggering, then look at a funny book or play a funny video. If not, just learn to let go, and laugh a bit. You see, sometimes we think of, oh, I need something to make me feel happy before I laugh. No, if you simply laugh, it makes you feel happy. That means the reverse is true. By simply laughing, see, this very second after I do that, I feel good. See? By simply laughing, it makes you feel good because that laughter is one of the most powerful way to stimulate the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve triggers all these wonderful hormones releasing to help your whole body really get into a very good feeling. So this is one of the things we can do. Anything relaxing, sports or whatever, okay? Finally, tension relaxation exercises. Now, this is the one part of the translation where Bhante Punnaji's translation is very different from other people. Other people follow the traditional word-for-word Pali translation. Now, I'll clarify that in a moment. But the word-for-word Pali translation says you press your muscle, you tense up, use your tongue, press against your palate, and then tighten grit your teeth, and then press it, and then they said force the thought out of your mind. That's never going to work. Ask any psychologist, psychotherapist, neuroscientist, or anybody, or doctor. Do you think by just forcing like that, the thought will leave your mind? No. And it makes it worse. You're fighting the thought. Now, Bhante says tension and relaxation. He says tense and then relax. Now, and then everybody else says, no, the word relax is not mentioned. And this is where I asked Bhante. Now, one of the important things you must realize, when I asked Bhante about the Pali Canyon, if there is something in there which he might have a different thought about it, he will never say it because as a monk, he has taken the vow never to challenge or dispute the Pali Canyon. But he will, of course, hint it in a way that there is another way of looking at it. So I asked him, is the word relaxation mentioned in the Pali Canyon? And he says, no, it's not mentioned. Then I asked him, and even though he didn't directly say it, but I got the feeling somehow along the oral transmissions from 2,500 years ago when people tried to recite it, perhaps the word relax was dropped out. Now, think about it, common sense. If you tense your muscles, what happens next? You have to relax. So the relaxation process is really part and parcel of the tension process. You cannot tense and then stop. You can't do that. So when you tense, you must relax. And somehow I think the word relax is not mentioned or dropped out accidentally over the years, or perhaps it is implied. But Bhante, of course, said it is implied. And it is true, common sense. There's no way you can tense and stop. That's it. You must relax. So therefore, it's tension relaxation. And this is again what I pointed out, psychosomatic effect. When you do that with your body, tense, relax, tense, relax, tense, relax, tense, relax, it's flexing your mind. Your mind is flexing, tightening, letting go, tightening. And that flexing is like a dirty towel. If a dirty towel, without washing them, the dirty towel has a lot of dirt. If you just flip it, and you squeeze it or squash it, all the dirt will come out. In the same way, if the mind carries a lot of unwholesome thought, tensing, relaxing, tensing, relaxing, tensing, relaxing, it actually has the effect of releasing these thoughts. Right? So this is really tension relaxation. And relaxation is not mentioned specifically. That's why the translators never said it. But and they say, and they misunderstood by tensing, it forces the thought out. No, it is the relaxation part, and it is not just one time, it is the continuous action. So that is really these 5 ways. And what you see in this screen, which I will share, I will post this and you will get this. What you see on this screen is my version, my paraphrasing of Bante's translation. It's basically what Bante said, but I paraphrase it in a practical way to teach the prison inmates, to help them. Okay. All right. So I see there are some comments. I'll quickly take a look and see what they are. Okay. Oh, no, nobody has questions, so let it be. Okay. So moving on. Question number 3. Who is the observer when meditating? Is it the mind, which is an activity of the brain? Or how is what is observed separated? Okay, now let me first clarify. First, there is no thing called observer, right? There is only consciousness. And consciousness is also supported by a memory of past experiences. Okay. And it is this, when we meditate, it is this present moment awareness and clear comprehension and discernment and reasoning. First, we begin with present moment awareness when we meditate. So, anapanasati, observing the breathing process, is itself present moment awareness. You're aware of the breathing process. And then you understand that you are undergoing this process of breathing. Right? It's an experience. Like I pointed earlier, experiential thinking. So, this is the experience of breathing in and out. Only when you go deeper in and you find stillness and you begin to differentiate, then you can go into discernment and reasoning. And this is when you begin to enter into the state of vipassana. But during the early stages of samatha, observing your breathing, that is present moment awareness and clear comprehension, that is samatha. And when you go deep in and the mind is still, you begin to see more clearly cause and effect, rising, falling, then you go into discernment and reasoning. So basically, this is what's going on in the mind in meditation. I want to clarify one point, okay? Activity of the brain. Now, activity of the brain itself is not the mind. It is the experience of the activity, okay? So the activity of the brain that you are experiencing, that experience is the experience of consciousness. So the mind is the experience of consciousness because of the activity of the brain. So in other words, you cannot put an equal sign between activity of the brain equals mind or activity of the brain equals consciousness. Not really. It's the experience of the activity that is the consciousness, okay? Because it's an experiential thing. Whereas the activity of the brain is a physical thing. Okay. So activity of the brain, it is the experience of the mind. So it's really it is experiential thinking. So therefore, if you remain conscious, those 3 things just before that, present moment awareness, clear comprehension, and discernment and reasoning, this is really keeping the mind conscious and fully aware. Now, I want to clarify this thing about observer. Max Planck Institute for Brain Research has been doing for decades research, neuroscientific research on the brain and what they call mind. Okay, and the director, Dr. Wolf Singer, he has retired. That's why he is now director emeritus. So during the time when he was the director and head of the research, he had a meeting with the Dalai Lama, explaining to the Dalai Lama their findings. Very interesting. He says that in the brain, now, of course, scientists like to speak in physical terms, okay, existential terms. So inside the brain, it says, in the thinking part of the brain, the outer part, the cerebral cortex of the brain, there are 100 different regions which process every sense experience. Let me mute people first. Okay, there's still people unmuted. No, nobody is unmuted. Okay. So in the cerebral cortex, there are 100 different areas that process every sensory experience. Now, when you see somebody, what do you see? First, you see the outline of that person. So there's a part of the brain that processes that. Next, you see different colors within the image of that person. There's another part of the brain that processes colors. And then you start to see individual features, eyes, nose, ear. There's another part of the brain that processes features. And then you see this person and you begin to recognize this person. You remember, you realize who that person is. There's another part of the brain that fetches on memory to process recognition, that, oh, I know this person, you know. So there's 100 different parts of the brain processing different features of whatever you are experiencing, be it sound or a sight or a vision or a smell. There are many different parts of the brain processing it. And these do not have a supervisor, right? There is no one sitting on top directing everything. But what happens is that the brain goes into a rhythmic cycle, right? And this rhythmic cycle, if they are all running at the same frequency, then all that will come together, will be synchronized together. So synchronous oscillatory frequency. If they are running at a conscious level, then all this will come together. You become aware of the full experience of what you have just seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch. Okay, so let's take a look at what he has to say. Okay, I'm going to play a video. So if you have any problem seeing the video, please enter the chat box and type in your problem.
Now, modern brain research designs a completely different picture of the organization of our brain. If we had a picture, you would now see areas of the cerebral cortex, about 100 of them, which are interconnected very, very intensively, one with the other. But there is no evidence for a convergence center or for a pyramidal hierarchical organization. These areas, they deal with very different inputs, like from the eye, from the ear, from the touch senses. And then there are areas which belong to the so-called limbic system, which attach emotional connotations to the contents of conscious experience. So there is no single place in the brain where an observer could be located, or a command structure could be implemented, or where the self could have its seat. It's a highly distributed system in which many, many functions occur simultaneously, and there is no coordinator. They self-organize. So there is no coordinator, no observer, no seat of the self.
So the brain is a highly distributed dynamical system that has no singular convergence center. That means there's no part of the brain where everything comes together. There is no coordinator, no observer, no seat of the self. But all this can come together in the form of synchronization through brain waves. If your brain waves are of different part of the, see, brain waves in different part of the brain may have different frequencies. But if they all happen to have a frequency close enough, they will be able to synchronize, and your experience will be a consolidated picture of what you have just seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch. So this is called synchronous oscillatory frequency, right? And this is sometimes called brain waves in short. In layman term is brain waves. And that conscious level is when you become aware. So if they all have the same frequency, then you become fully aware. That's why if your brain is synchronized, that means all the different parts of the brain have the same rhythmic frequency, then your thinking is synchronized, you're fully aware. But if they are not, then your mind is really going in all over the place, you know. So if different parts of the brain have different frequency, that is when you have some form of mental proliferation, because you have all kinds of different thoughts popping up, which are not synchronized, not consistent with what you have just experienced. What you have experienced is, for example, a good friend walking towards you, and then you see that person, you realize who that person is, and that seeing, recognizing, realizing, all this is part of the different activities in the brain, and they contribute to the experience of the mind. The Max Planck Institute for Research and this director, right, Wolf Singer, they are not Buddhists. They are 100% pure scientists, and yet they come to the conclusion there is no self. This is one of the most amazing findings in neuroscience. Neuroscience has proven there is no thing called self inside you. Whether you're talking about the brain or you're talking about the mind, right? So that's one of the good news, right?
Brother Billy.
Modern brain.
Wait. Okay, yes, question?
So you're saying that the mental proliferation occurs when there is no synchronization and there is not complete awareness of the activity of the senses coming together. And when they synchronize at the level of mano.
Yeah. Let me explain in the next few slides exactly your question.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll just close this, you can see. Now, let me... okay, never mind. Just focus on the part at the top. And think of the mind having a part of the mind that is conscious, and the rest of it is submerged under the surface. It's like an iceberg. And Bante has explained this, Sigmund Freud has explained this, many scientists have explained this, and there is no dispute that a very small part of the mind is conscious, the rest of it is unconscious, not aware. The blue part is what is conscious, present moment awareness, and clear comprehension, discernment. Present moment awareness is sati. Okay, so now this sati is occurring now. Sati is really that process of synchronization. This now, what I'm saying now is my interpretation and my paraphrasing of connecting what the scientists are saying with what the Buddha has said. Okay, so the Buddha points out sati, present moment awareness. And this is really the synchronization of various parts of the brain so that you are now aware what is exactly going on. Present, you are aware. This is just awareness. Together with awareness, right, then comes understanding, clear comprehension. That's why these two terms in Pali Canon and in many sutras are always together, sati sampajana. You do see them separately, but very often they are mentioned together. Sati dash sampajana, or one word, sati sampajana. Basically, you are fully aware of what's going on and you understand. And this understanding can only arise if your brain is fully synchronized. If any part of the brain is not synchronized, so the image and the recognition are not related, your mind is really running around, picking up all kinds of garbage, right? But only when they synchronize, you have sati sampajana. When you have sati sampajana, you are able to think more clearly. Then comes the third one, which is ability to realize cause and effect, discernment, and reasoning. This is yoniso manasikara, or sometimes they call it wise attention. This is wisdom centered around the realization of karma vipaka, right? Cause and effect. That when you experience something and you behave in a way that is not consistent with the positiveness of that experience, you are creating a problem for yourself and for other people. So yoniso manasikara is this wisdom. Then comes the rest of the conscious mind. Logic is 1 + 1 = 2. Critical thinking is the ability to analyze. Willpower is when you have made it, when you are clear that you are pursuing a goal, or you are actually engaged in an actual activity that is meaningful, or activity that you are focused on. So focus activity. Aspiration is when you have a desire to want to achieve something. Intention is the decision to go ahead and do it. And decision making is really all the things that you decide to do, all the different steps you decide to take in order to accomplish your goals. So all that in blue is the conscious mind. Then comes the unconscious mind below it. And this unconscious mind is, the scientists refer to these happening in the limbic system, or the emotional part of the brain. Okay. So in a nutshell, you can say what you see in pink is the emotional thinking. Emotional thinking does not necessarily mean you get excited or whatever. It simply means that there is a very self-centered component to it, that everything is connected to I, me, mine, So when you perceive something, you begin to interpret. And this is where Bhante was talking about categorizing, classifying, all this, right? Interpretation, opinions, judgment, needs, wants, wishes, and so on. A whole lot of that, okay? Desires. Now, wishes and desires are not the same as intention and decision. It's a bit different. Intention is very clear, exactly what you are planning to do, what you are now focusing on doing. So there is a focus on doing, on wanting to do something. That is intention. But wishes and desires, these are not clear focus. They are sitting in the background, rotating in, floating around, triggering, giving impulses, stimulating a whole lot of other thinking that comes along. So there's a whole lot of it, but the bottom part are the most critical part. Sorry. The bottom three there: imagination, which has to do with future thinking that creates fears and worries; memory, about what you recall from the past, and that leads to some form of anger, resentment, and dissatisfactoriness; and expectation is the present moment is not according to your wishes. That's why you have discontent. And these are the ones that really disturb you. Okay. So mental proliferation can arise when these things in pink somehow are acting. Yeah, they're triggering. And they can be triggering because your brain is not synchronized. It can also be triggering because basically your brain is not synchronized. You're not focused. You're not in a clear awareness and clear consciousness. You are now into subconsciousness. So you allow your mind to drift, right? And then that drifts is causing a whole lot of things. Okay, yeah. I think I have later on some other parts. I will explain this a little further down in another question. Okay, Sister Maria, you had a question. What was it?
Actually, I was requesting you to give an example. I think it was in regard to discernment and reasoning, on the other slide that you had previously to this.
Yeah. Yeah, discernment is understanding cause and effect. Reasoning is realizing what is helpful for you and what is not helpful for you. So these are part and parcel of what we call wise attention. You are aware with wisdom. You are aware of the cause and effect. So in other words, if you, let's say, experiencing somebody saying something unpleasant to you, you are aware that if you react and shout back at that person, it may lead to more troubles. So that is discernment, realizing that. And reasoning is that if this person is basically not evil, then you think it's good to continue your friendship with that person. So it's a reasoning. Basically, that's what discernment reasoning means. Cause and effect and helpful, harmful, right? And this is part and
So
parcel.
actually, Brother Billy,
Yeah. Yeah.
actually, at this point is when one has the chance to respond and not to react emotionally
Precisely.
at this level of discernment.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And those three practices I mentioned earlier on. Well, never mind, is one way. And then the other one, pause, do not react, take a deep breath, relax, and then think. Think is then reasoning. Should I continue to be friendly to this person or should I turn my back and walk away? So there's a kind of reason. If that person is a violent, evil person, the best thing to do is to turn your back and walk away. Don't get close to that person because he's already in a state of being violent, right? So stay away from these people. So not not engaging in interacting with these people when you realize they are evil and violent. That is reasoning, right? So this is all part and parcel of wise attention, yoniso manasikara. I hope that explains.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
These are the three most powerful things that lead us to happiness. Sati, Sampajana, Yoniso, Manasikara. And very often in many sutras, when they spoke of Sati, Sampajana, Yoniso, Manasikara is also mentioned. So they basically go together. And there I have direct connection with the English explanation and the scientific explanation that that the brain is now synchronized. And then that helps with Sati and Sampajana. Okay, moving on. I'll be talking a little bit more about this further on when there is another question. I'll come to that. Okay. Now, question number 4, I'm so sorry I will not be able to answer, and I don't want to dwell into this topic. Can a person born... I can answer the first part, but not the second part. Can a person born blind create mental images? Now, mental images is basically what the mind is thinking about. See, what is going on in your mind? What is going on in your mind is nothing but a continuous flow of mental images. And mental images does not necessarily mean visual image. It can also be an auditory image. That means the mind is aware of a sound, words spoken to you, you thought about it. Or you can be aware of a taste or a feeling or a sensation in the body. So mental image means any of these 5 different physical senses leaving their marks behind, and they can arise. So it's possible. I will not be able to understand what happens in the mind of a person born blind. Maybe neuroscientists can explain that. But in terms of the other senses, then there will always be a memory bank of all the experiences and they keep floating. So the mind is a continuous flow of mental images. So in other words, my first statement is that activity of the brain is the experience of the mind. Now, my second statement, continuing from there, is the mind is a continuous flow of mental images. And this statement is supported by many neuroscientists and psychologists, that the mind is just a continuous flow of mental images, rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. That's really what it is. So could they create mental images of their past life? I don't want to go into that, but my experience plus what my understanding and my own personal opinion, a lot of people who talk about remembering past lives, I think they're just imagining past lives. So I don't subscribe to a lot of people really can see their past lives. I do know of at least 2 individuals personally who I believe can see their past life. But other than that, the rest of the thousands of people I know, when anyone talks about remembering past life, I'm very doubtful. Okay. Now I won't go further into this, so we'll skip this question. Sorry about that. Number 5, if the mental proliferation cannot be stopped, then how can a person purify the mind? Well, that's it. If you cannot stop mental proliferation, the mind continues to be disturbed. It can never be purified. Simple as that. Meditation is one way to help calm the mind, bring the mind to a state of stillness. Now, I want to clarify one thing though. It is not about so-called emptying the mind. You cannot empty the mind. The mind is full of memories. You are not emptying the memory. You cannot empty the memory. Memory pops up as and when they choose, but you can still the mind. In other words, if you think of a mind, it's full of memory, and all these memory are many baskets of garbage. Well, sorry to use the word garbage, but many baskets of all kinds of stuff. Let's say you imagine many different plates of food on the table. At any time, they could tilt over and then splash all over the place. And that is mental proliferation in a way. So if all these different plates of food, okay, stilling the mind means you leave them alone. You don't touch them. You don't disturb them. No disturbances. So all these different rubbish bin of memories, stilling the mind means you don't disturb them. Mental proliferation means you're kicking around each basket, some of them spill over. And that's mental proliferation. And I hope that analogy is helpful. And therefore, meditation helps you still the mind. Not empty the mind. You can't empty the mind. You can still the mind. But some people use the term empty the mind. He doesn't really mean removing all your memory. It just means that at that moment, there is nothing in your mind, or it is not focusing on any specific thought. It's just stilled. Now, if you can reach that stillness without focusing on any thought, you have removed vitaka, vichara. You are now actually into at least the second jhana already. That's what it is. When you're in the first jhana, there is still some thoughts going on, and that is vitaka, vichara. But when you have stilled the mind, vitaka, vichara is gone. You're into second jhana and so on. Okay? So that is how meditation can train the conscious mind to do all that. Is it that renouncing to the lay people life will come to help reducing the tons of stimulus for the senses because can do bhavana? Well, can do bhavana is one thing. Lay people can do that too. But definitely when you renounce, you are giving up a lot of sensual activity that you are engaged in as a lay person. For one thing, my personal opinion, monks should minimize the use of cell phone. They only use it for communication or for sharing particular information if they want to post it on Facebook or whatever to spread the teachings. Other than that, if you're a monk, you shouldn't be spending your time, scrolling through whatever, then you are engaging in this this activity where you are still connected with lay life activities going on. Because when you scroll, what are you looking at on a cell phone? You are scrolling through lay person's activities going on around the world. So therefore, that is not renunciation. If you really renounce, you minimize the use of cell phone. You only use it for very specific purpose. Communication with someone, in order to send or receive a particular message of a certain worthiness, or you are spreading the teaching through social media to help people learn more. That's it. Other than that, Don't waste time scrolling through. Then you're not renouncing anymore. Of course, homelessness reduces greatly the interference from the lay life, not off lay life, interference from lay life. Okay, so I hope that answers that question there. Quite simple and straightforward. Number 6. Now there are some chat items. Let me take a look. Okay. Sister Maylin has asked, can you please elaborate further on repressed memories? Is it also trauma, negative reactions, past events or experience which we unconsciously retain in our mind? Well, short answer, yes. I'm going to explain this in a moment, so just bear with me for a while. There is a further question. I will explain more about this repressed memory in a moment, okay? So that should answer Sister Maylin's question. Okay. Now this came from a chat with someone who asked, I am confused about where Proto-Buddhism stands on free will. On the one hand, Bande Punaji brings up the concept of determinism. On the other hand, your presentation says we have full freedom to choose our response. As I understand it, CBT authors like Albert Ellis assert something in the middle. We have some free will, but there are limits. Could you please clarify? Okay, and my short answer is that when I mention no free will, I'm not referring to no freedom to think or no freedom to decide. This term is universally accepted to refer to Benjamin Libet's experiment. This term by itself is not a definition, but it is used to refer to Benjamin Libet's experiment of no free will, right? And that experiment refers to the mind having thoughts arising, and these are coming from the affective process. You see the submerged part of the mind, the pink part just now. I'll come to that again. So these thoughts arising from the affective process, and this can happen several seconds before you make a conscious decision to act. That's what Benjamin Libet's experiment proved. And if you look at my mental proliferation video, you will find it explained there. So I won't go further into that Benjamin Libet experiment. So basically, when we are making a conscious decision to decide to act, several seconds before that, we are not aware there is a lot of things going on in the mind connected with that part of the thinking. And that is what Benjamin Libet's experiment discovered. How connected it is, what is the nature of this connection, there is no further explanation on it. But he proved that when you are about to make a conscious decision to act, there are several seconds of affective process of the mind with a lot of thoughts going on before arriving at that decision. Okay, that's really what it proved. That is why he says the mind is not free. By the time it makes a decision, there has been some influences. Okay, that's just what is briefly concluded. No great discovery. It's just enough to say there is mental activity several seconds before a conscious decision. Hence, there is a lot of noise. So this, what it is, we don't know, right? But it is so-called noise, disturbances, just before we make any conscious decision to act. This noise is what the Buddha referred to as anusayam in that sense. A lot of things arising in the background. I will explain further in a moment. And arising on its own without our intention, that means we didn't want it, we didn't intend it to happen, we didn't will it, we didn't start it, and we are not in control of it, because when they arise, we don't know about it, and they disturb us, and we can't stop it. Okay, if we are not well trained in satipatthana, and this is what leads to mental proliferation. All this arising, the anusayam, that's what leads to the mental proliferation. And Bante's reference to determinism. Now, what Bante Punnaji used, he used the word determinism a lot. Okay, it is similar to what I already said: full freedom to choose our response. When Bante said determinism, he basically points at the fact that humans have the ability to determine what they want. And this is mentioned in the first and second Dhammapada verse. If the mind is focused on something, something helpful or something wholesome, then you will experience happiness. If the mind is focused on something unwholesome and leading to an unwholesome intention, then it leads to suffering. So if you're thinking of unwholesome intention, you have suffering. If you are clearly thinking of wholesome intentions, then it brings you happiness. That is really what Bhante was pointing out as determinism. We have the capacity to determine our future by making conscious, rational, helpful, wholesome decisions to act. That is Dhammapada verse number 2. Dhammapada verse number 1 is, if we don't have that, we are actually acting on ill will, acting on unpleasant, unwholesome decisions. It brings suffering. So that's what Bhante is pointing out, that we have this power, capacity. And that's the meaning of determinism. That's also the meaning of what I said, full freedom to choose our response. Okay. Such freedom is rooted in sati, sampajana, and yoniso manasikara, which is what I mentioned earlier. In a way, determinism equals that. So in a way, this is my statement. I hope all of you realize a lot of what I'm saying here. If I'm not saying it came from Bhante Punnaji, then it is my explanation of what I've understood from Bhante Punnaji. It's my paraphrasing of Bhante's teachings. Okay, so in a way, determinism equals sati sampajana yoniso manasikara. That is really my assessment, or rather, my paraphrasing of what Bhante meant by determinism. Okay. Number 7, why in the slides Vedana goes before Sanya? It should that Sanya is before than Vedana. I'm not too sure the English, but I think the question is basically why in the party in the my mind suddenly went blank on it. 5 aggregates, okay? In the 5 aggregates, Vedana first, then Sanya. We'll come to that in a moment. Why Vedana first and Sanya? But actually, the answer is very simple. They are not separated. Sanya and Vedana occur simultaneously. They are inseparable. I'll explain that. Sanya is the sensation experienced by the nerve cells. Light entering the eye, striking the retina inside your eyeball. The moment light strikes the retina, it triggers a nerve reaction, and that is sensation. That is sanya. The nerve reaction on the optic nerves at the back of the retina when light strikes it, that is sanya. It is always accompanied by vedana, which is the feeling of the sensation. In other words, if the light is bright when it strikes it, that sanya has a that sanya comes with a feeling of unpleasantness. You see, it is inseparable. When light strikes the optic nerves, triggering the neuron to send electrical impulse to the brain, that is sanya. At the same time, whether this electrical impulse is reacting to strong light, which is unpleasant, that is vedana. So it's inseparable. Sanya and vedana happen at the same time. Just because in language, in words, we cannot put, in words, there are no parallel. You can't have 2 words happening at the same time. You cannot overlap 2 words. You have to put one word ahead of the other. So somehow Vedana came first before Sanya, but that doesn't mean Vedana arises first before Sanya. Okay. They both arise at the same time. And this is what Bhante calls antecedental concurrence. That is concurrence of antecedents, that the two are happening simultaneously, concurrent. Okay, there is no one before the other physically. Right? They're both happening at the same time. In the process of perception, I just go back to make sure I clarify. Yeah, basically, the reason why in the text of the five aggregate, Vedana comes before Sanya does not mean Vedana happens first before Sanya. So our existential mind, this is our existential mind. Our existential mind locks into the fact that when this word arises first, followed by this word, then this is happening first, followed by that. See, that is the existential mind. But in reality, the two are happening at the same time, concurrent. This is why Bhante's explanation of Paticca Samuppada is so beautiful, because it's talking about this antecedental concurrence. It's not like this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It's not like that. The whole thing happened in one big shebang, almost simultaneously in that sense. You know, there's a lot of explanation in the past videos, so I won't go into this Paticca Samuppada. It's too long to go there. All right. In the process of perception, an individual is creating the image, sankara. Why, if there is an image of a dog as an object out there, two individuals see the same object? All right. I'll clarify sankara in a moment. The statement is not quite correct. Sankara is not a creation process. Sankara is a construction process. It builds it up. I'll come to that in a moment. No two persons perceive identical image of the same object. In other words, if there is one object, both of you are looking at that object, even if the two of you are right side by side, no two persons see exactly the same image. Let me show you a simple thing. Okay. You see this. That's a clock. You see the image of the clock face. So you are looking at this object. I am also looking at this object. What do you see? The clock face. What do I see? The back of the clock. Even if we are both standing side by side and I present to you an object and it's slightly angled, the person on this side will see more of the clock face and very little of the side. The person standing on this side will see very little of the clock face, more of that side. And even if they stood next to each other, they are not overlapping each other. No two person can overlap each other. So they still have slightly different angle. So in other words, this statement about two individuals seeing the same object, the answer is they don't have the same mental image. No two persons perceives identical image of the same object. Okay, so I hope that is clear, and that example is enough. Each of us perceives a unique angle of the object. So no two persons have identical experience of the object. So when I show you this, and you see the clock face, if you are practicing sati sampajana, right, you only see the clock face. But it's your memory, your categorized memory. You see this thing, oh, it's an alarm clock. Alarm clock always has knobs at the back. Alarm clock is an electrical alarm clock, so there must be a battery. You see, it's your memory. It's not what you see. What do you see? The only thing you see is the clock face. You don't see the knob. You don't see the battery. But your memory of categorized information, category identification, reminds you a small little electrical alarm clock must have some knob and some battery. You see, simple as that. So you're not actually seeing reality. You are letting your memory take over because of categorization. And this is what Buddha was pointing out, that categorization, right? That is what leads to mental distortions of some sort, cognitive distortions, and mental proliferation because of the categorization. So in other words, when we see an object, if we practice sati sampajana, we realize we have only seen the image of that object and that's it. But because we allow memory, the submerged part of the mind, rising up memory from past experiences, to add on categorization as an alarm clock, to add on to it, adding salt, adding vinegar, adding whatever, kayin, gacho, all kinds of tambahan, adding on this and adding on that, that creates a more complex and distorted perception of what we have just experienced, right? So each of us perceives a unique angle of the object. So no two persons have identical experience of that object seen. Can you explain again where exactly the mental proliferation arises? Okay. That's the one I'm going to explain further. Is it when opinions happens or when selection options happens? There is a sutra that explains this. Yes, sutra explained it very simply. Unfortunately, there is no deep explanation. In fact, in this sutra, I won't go through it, but very briefly, the Buddha only briefly mentioned it, and then the Buddha went to his chambers. He left, and then the monks were left bewildered. They were puzzled, and then they went on to seek another monk to explain further. Okay, and then later that evening, when everybody got together, when they understood the explanation from the other monk, everybody was very happy. And then uh, uh, I think Sariputta was saying that, or I can't remember, Ananda or Sariputta, one of them was saying that, this is such a sweet thing. So it's like a honey ball, That's why this sutra became called Honey Ball Sutra. Okay, it had nothing to do with the content. It's just the conclusion that this is such a sweet explanation. That's why it's called Honey Ball Sutra. Okay. In that sutra, Majjhima Nikaya 18, Madhupindika Sutra, it mentions how we tend to classify, categorize, interpret, and assign labels on every experience. And this process, classify, categorize, interpret, assign label, that is Papancha Sanya Sanka. Okay. I will repeat the video of Bante's explanation in a moment. And because of that, it triggers the arising of memory, sleeping memory, repressed memory. Repression is not the same as suppression. I want to repeat that. Okay. If you think of a thought and then you don't want it, you intentionally want to let it go, intentionally just want to let it go, or you want to press it down, suppress it, you don't want it. Let's say you have an urge to want to eat something, and then you say, okay, no, stop, don't think about it. That is suppression. Repression is when you have a thought and you don't fight it. You just say, let it go. You just release and clinging on to the thought. And then that thought somehow sits in the background and goes to sleep. That is repression. So suppression is intentional, willful pressing down of a thought. That's why it's suppressed. And the problem with suppression is the thought fights back. When you try to press it down, the two become stronger, because you are actually activating interaction with the thought. Any interaction with a thought gives power to the thought. Okay. Whereas repression is letting it go, like, well, never mind. That is a way of repressing, putting the thought to sleep. Okay. So there's a difference between suppression and repression. Suppression is when you are angered by somebody saying something unpleasant, and then you feel that anger, but you don't want to allow that anger to take control. So you say, okay, calm down, stop, don't get angry. That is suppression. But if you're feeling that anger rising and you say, well, never mind, let it go, then that is repression. So that's the difference between repression, which is releasing, letting it go, letting it sleep, let sleeping dogs lie, they call it, and versus suppression, which is trying to force it down. Okay. So therefore, this is repressed memory rising because somewhere in the past you have allowed it to sleep. And that leads to an emotional chain reaction producing this emotional thoughts rising to disturb the mind. And this whole process, right, of emotional thoughts arising, disturbing the mind, for lack of a better term, that is called mental proliferation. But there are really very distinct differences. But I group them all to say, to keep it simple, these four different processes, there are four processes that I can clearly explain. These four processes are all just in one word: mental proliferation, which is a disturbance of the mind from repressed memory, and because of and these are emotional in nature. Emotional means they create some kind of anxiety, liking, anger, lust, greed, all kinds of emotional reactions. Okay. So let's listen first to Bhante Punaji's explanation of anusayam, repressed unconscious memory. Bhante also call it sleeping memory.
Anusaya really means saya. Saya means sleeping. Anusaya means sleeping. That means, what is the meaning of sleeping? This is what Sigmund Freud called repression. That means people begin to forget things. And once it is forgotten, you don't even know that you are having certain things. You're not aware of it. And
We cannot hear anything, Brother Billy.
was to bring out these hidden, repressed things, bring it.
Can you hear now?
Right now, yes, but there was a moment that we couldn't hear anything.
Okay, understood. Okay, I go back a little bit. Okay, let's
Yes,
go
please.
back.
Things. And once it is forgotten, you don't even know that you are having certain things. You're not aware of it. And
Somebody needs to unmute
of
the mute the
it's,
microphone. I think it's okay. There.
I'll do that. No, nobody is unmuted. And maybe, okay, I'll continue. I'll go back a fraction and continue.
You're not aware of it. And that kind of sleeping is what is called repression. And so what is called psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud was to bring out these hidden, repressed things, bring it out, and to become aware of it. What is unconscious is made conscious. So to make the unconscious conscious is what the Buddha, not what the Sigmund Freud did, and that is what the Buddha did also, ultimately, to make the unconscious conscious. That unconsciousness is what is called avidya. And so our mind is normally in an unconscious state. Most of the time, although we think we are conscious, most of the time we are acting unconsciously. This is the point. And this is why Sigmund Freud used the analogy of the iceberg. When the iceberg is kept in the water, it's like a piece of ice you put in the water, it begins to float. What is out of the water is only a small piece. The rest is inside the water. So in the same way, our mind, when we say we are conscious, we are only a small piece is conscious. The rest is all happening unconsciously.
So only a small piece is conscious. And now I'm using Bante's translation. Now, in this sutra, the Buddha explained everything. And then after that, he then went to his chambers. So this is early part of his explanation, which was quite brief. So he told all the monks that in whatever way, now this is Bante's translation, Bante Punnaji's translation, not other people's. In whatever way a person recognizes something by classifying or labeling it, it is in this way that past experiences begin to affect future behavior unconsciously. And what Bante really meant is when we begin to give labels, when we begin put things into a category, when we begin to classify them, we have memory of the past about the subject matter, and this memory starts to rise up. And arising of this memory from the past begins to disturb our thinking. And that disturbance of thinking disturbs our behavior. And we are not aware of it. Or rather, we don't think about it. It all happened unconsciously, rising in the background. Now, this translation came actually, I got the actual wordings from Bante many years ago. Many years ago, I think 2015 or 2014, I was giving a Dharma talk on this particular sutra, Majjhima Nikaya 18. And I came to these Pali terms and I asked Bante to translate. And these are the exact words he used at the time, and I wrote it down. This is not mentioned, I'm not aware this is mentioned anywhere else. But this is actually the word I wrote down on my notebook, and I use these exact words as Bante translated to me verbally. So this term, Papancha Sanya Sanka, is referring to the process of classifying and labeling. We have this tendency, and this classifying and labeling is caused by our memory of thinking something, and then we remember what it should be, like I showed you. You look at this alarm clock and suddenly you begin to think that, oh, there should be a knob at the back, there should be battery to come with it, because you remember alarm clocks are like that. And because of that, you have already disturbed or reconstructed in your mind the interpretation of this alarm clock, not based on exactly what you saw, which is the clock face, but also remembering other things, classifying this as an alarm clock. So therefore, we have this tendency to classify, and this classification can cause a lot of problems. Now listen to Bande explain the classification process or categorization process. He calls it categorized identification. Now, all the scientists have agreed. We do not observe something and see it in its pure form. We always somehow in the back of our mind assign it to a particular category and think of it as a category, just as you think of this as the category of an alarm clock. You don't think of this as this particular object I'm showing you, but you think of it this alarm clock, the categorization of alarm clock that you think you are seeing. But you really only see the face, but your mind is thinking of the whole category of alarm clock.
Papancha is really identification. Identification.
Is it the same as categorization then?
That is right. It is by categorizing that you identify.
Yeah.
That is the meaning of papancha sanya sankha. Sankha is category. Papancha sanya sankha. It is by putting it into a category that you begin to identify.
Okay. And following that, this is also the other part of Bante's translation to me when I was preparing to deliver that sutra. And this is his English translations. There are unconscious repressions or repressed memories arising. And these arising, they produce thoughts. So in other words, they begin to have some thoughts of like appearing in the form of thoughts. And these thoughts begin to uh, shape our beliefs and opinions. Shape our beliefs and opinion means they begin to distort, contaminate, or alter, or have some influence on our beliefs and opinions. And this then affects or influences our actions and behavior. And this behavior and action may then lead to some kind of conflicts and disagreement. So this is really what Bante meant when he translated it in this way. That Anusayam is unconscious repressed memory. That's really what it is. Unconscious repressions or unconscious repressed memory. Because Bante was also using a very well accepted explanation from the teachings of Sigmund Freud. We have to accept that modern teaching sometimes can also help to explain Bante, can explain the Buddha's teaching. So Anusayam is unconscious repressed memory, unconscious repressions. This term unconscious repressions or unconscious repressed memory came mainly from the teachings of Sigmund Freud. And there are 7 of them. So I won't go through all in detail, but basically these 7 and the English words are the translations of Bhante Punaji. Okay. So you can see the first one relates to greed and lust. The second one relates to anger and hatred. And the rest of them have to do with self-centeredness and basically delusions of some sort. So the first one, number 1, has to do with loba, which is greed and lust for something pleasant. Number 2 has to do with dosa, which is anger and hatred towards something unpleasant. Number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 has to do with moha, which is commonly called delusions, right? Or ignorance, but actually ignorance is not a good word. Delusions. So, and this delusion is centered around self-centeredness. It's I, me, or mine, right? So, views and beliefs, that's my personal views and belief. Vacillation and perplexity, I am now a little confused and unable to make sense and start to doubt certain things. It's not doubt. Vichikicha is not doubt. It is actually the confusion, disturbance of the mind, unable to find a common ground, and therefore there's some doubt. And then ego is that I, me, or mine, very strong. Ego and conceit. And then the thinking of existential thinking. That's why I say when you try to study the Buddha's teaching, always think of it from experiential perspective. But here we like to think of things in existential perspective. And therefore, and then avijja is not ignorance, pure ignorance. It's basically unknowing, insentience, not knowing. Okay. So these are the 7 anusayams that may arise. Okay, coming back to this, now I will explain this in greater detail. As we are aware, the blue is conscious mind. Then what is in pink is the subconscious and unconscious Sorry. Subconscious and unconscious mind. Just one moment. I just want to check. Okay, sorry. So subconscious and unconscious mind is in the pink part. Okay. Now, it is the bottom three which are most critical. The imagination deals with future thinking. Memory is recalling past experiences. And then expectation is the current situation. Our mind is constantly going into these three, but of course, very much onto imagination, but also a lot into memory and expectation. Imagination is about the future, memory is about the past, expectation is about the present. Right? So future, we have some fears and worries and anxiety about the future. The past, we have anger, hatred, and dissatisfaction of what happened in the past, and regrets or whatever. And then the present, we discontented, something we're not happy about, whatever is going on right now. That is expectation. So these are the three, the strongest, that keep disturbing us, together with a whole lot of others in the background. Our hopes, our wishes, our opinions, judgment, belief system, values, moral, our own personal morality, ethics, our instincts, intuitions, habits, creativity, all these, like a whole jumble of things, everything coming together, right, disturbing us. And they trigger a chain reaction called emotional chain reaction. And that's when these anusayam arising, the 7 anusayams arise. And they disturb us, right? So this is really that whole process of rising, disturbing the mind. That is mental proliferation. It starts off with this unconscious part of the mind, right? Triggering a chain reaction, emotional chain reaction, where these 7 anusayams start to rise up in the form of lobha, dosa, moha, and disturb us, leading to depressions, post-traumatic stress disorder, psychological disorder, chronic illnesses, health issues, all kinds of things affecting us, right? So this is really, this disturbance is commonly called mental proliferation. But mental proliferation is also a very distinct thing by itself. There are 4 different processes. Let's see if I have. Okay, no. Let's go back to this. Mental proliferation, I'm using the term here to mean generically the disturbance. But there are 4 distinct types. One is mental proliferation, that means coming from categorization, that means the mind is now being, with a lot of things added to it, a lot of things additions to it. Another one is called cognitive distortion. Cognitive distortion is very specifically a psychological term from psychology, from CBT, and a lot of researchers have pointed out. I have the slides already. If you go back to my mental proliferation lecture, there you can download the slides of cognitive distortion. Cognitive distortion is a little bit more specific, where you are oriented towards a certain way of thinking. Like, for example, you are working for a boss. He gave you an assignment. Now you are in the process of doing the assignment, supposed to hand to him within the next 2 or 3 days. And in the process of doing it, you have some things you're not sure about. Now you want the boss to clarify. So you walk up to your boss and say, "Hey, boss, I have some things I need to ask you about that assignment. Do you have a minute?" Now, the boss now says back to you, wait, I'm busy. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then the boss just shuts you off. Okay. Mental proliferation is your mind now going into all kinds of thinking, right? But cognitive distortion is very specifically that, let's say you just think, oh, my boss shuts me off like that. Is it because he doesn't like me and he thinks I cannot do this project? So that's a very specific train of thought that you conclude. In other words, there's a certain conclusion. The boss doesn't like me. he doesn't think that I can handle this project, right? And that's why he doesn't want to talk to me now, right? So I arrive at a certain conclusion. So cognitive distortion is some form of conclusion, but that conclusion is based a lot on assumptions, assuming, okay? So this is the second part. The third part is rumination. Rumination is more complex than mental proliferation. Mental proliferation is still related to the topic, related to the subject, but rumination is now the mind running in all kinds of circles. This usually happens when the mind is not synchronized. The brain is not synchronized, I mean. So different parts of the brain starts to have all kinds of thoughts popping up. So rumination is really like a complete garbage or rubbish bin full of all kinds of garbage, nothing very specific at all. Okay, so rumination is not good in that sense. Mental proliferation, of course, may be heading in a certain direction, but it is not full of garbage, but rumination is full of garbage. And finally, the last part has to do with self-centeredness. Okay, so that self-centeredness is always referring to how is it affecting me, I, me, or mine. That I, me, or mine becomes very, very strong. Everything, every thought is centered around how does it affect me. That I, me, or mine is all very me focused. Okay, so there are 4 different categories. All of them collectively I call mental proliferation, for lack of a better word. Okay, the mind is now in all kinds of circle disturbed. Okay, so now I hope that is clear. Before I go any further, if anybody has any more questions, please post them on the chat. Okay, and if you have longer questions, feel free to send me an email later on. Write it down and send me an email, and then in the next Q&A, then I will answer those also. Okay. Can you present the 5 aggregates, the popular version, where this person asking the question said form, feeling, perception, fabrications, consciousness, side by side with the 5 constituents of the process of perception. Now, the Panchakanda, what is commonly translated as the 5 aggregate, Bande Punaji calls it 5 constituents of the process of perception. It's the same thing, except that Bante uses, one of the things, Bante uses English words, English terminology, which is very precise. One of the things I really respect Bante, and that was actually the first reason why I followed Bante. I'll tell you later why I decided to follow Bante all the way, because of his English, actually. Now, Bante has a very impeccable command of English. His choice of words are very precise. That's why he says this Panchakanda is the process of perception made of 5 constituents, 5 parts that come together, right? He doesn't call it 5 aggregate. This explanation of 5 aggregate is called 5 heaps. It's not clear. 5 elements that make up this whole process of perception. So what are they? Rupa, which the person asking the question says form. Okay, some people in fact refer to rupa as physical object. Okay, but really it's a mental image arising from your sense experience. That means light entered the eye, stimulating the back of the retina. These impulses go to the brain, and then the cerebral cortex, the visual cortex part of the mind at the back of the brain, forms a mental image. That is the rupa. The mind now has an image of what was seen. Vedana, sanya go together. They are not separated. Okay. But somehow in the Pali Kenyan, Vedana was mentioned first, followed by sanya. But really the two are side by side. It should be Vedana Sanya or Sanya Vedana as a complete term, the two together. So it's easy to talk about Sanya first, right? And it's also I'm also puzzled when I asked Bhante Punaji also, he didn't have an explanation why it was mentioned that Vedana comes first before Sanya, but they don't come first, they are together. When light, as I mentioned earlier, light enters the eyeball, stimulates the back of the retina. That stimulation triggers electrical impulses. That electrical impulses trigger a chain reaction going to the brain. That is Sanya, sensation. Sensation in the nervous system of the sense experience, sensing the light. Vedana is the feeling of this sensation, whether this sensation is pleasant or unpleasant. So if the light is very bright, that sensation can be unpleasant. That sensation can be hurting. The light is dim, it is not so hurting. And they also discovered red light can also have a very strong effect on the nervous system, whereas green light has a more calming effect. Okay. Same with sound. Now you have the ear. What arises in the ear is the air vibration striking the eardrum. Inside the ear, there is an eardrum. Right? It's like a piece of membrane. So the vibration of the air strikes that membrane. The moment, and then connected to this membrane are three bones that then connect to the part where there is a lot of nerves, auditory nerves. So when air strikes the eardrum, the membrane, it moves those three bones. Those three bones then shake the cochlea. That part is called the cochlea. Inside the cochlea, all the neurons sort of like standing up like grass inside liquid. So the whole thing shake. So these neurons vibrate, and that sends a signal through the auditory nerves. So now the brain becomes aware of a sound. Okay. Similarly, if that sound is loud, an explosion, bang, it causes an unpleasant feeling because that loud sound causes the cochlea to vibrate very vigorously, and that vibration triggers an unpleasant experience in the nervous system. That's why the triggering of the vibration and the pleasantness of in the nervous system go together. They are not separated. Okay, so that's why Sanya, Vedana always go together. Right? I hope that is clear. Whether you're talking about seeing or you're talking about hearing, all others are same. Touch, right? Somebody bang on the hand. The moment there is a contact, whether it's a gentle one or a hard one, as long as there's a contact, the nerve endings that senses contact is triggered, and that triggering causes the impulse to go to the brain that now you have come into physical contact. That is Sanya. At the same time, if that contact is very gentle, it can be sort of like pleasant. But if that contact is very hard, right, or sharp thing poking, then that is considered painful, right? So it is all happening together. They are not separable, not separated. Sanya, Vedana always go together. So I hope that is understood, right? It's like the other thing about the mind, Vitaka, Vichara always go together. In that sense, you don't separate them in that for a normal person, okay? So same thing. For normal experiences, Sanya, Vedana always go together. Just because Vedana is mentioned first does not mean anything. Sankara is not fabrication, it is construction. Fabrication is not the same as construction. Construction is putting a few things one by one on top of each other or together to form something. That is what Sankara is. Mental construction. Now, when you hear, or rather when you see an image, remember we spoke about earlier on the brain, the cerebral cortex, 100 different parts of the cerebral cortex is now processing an experience, right? So Sankara is really all this coming together, constructing your sensory inputs. And in the case of the visual cortex at the back, which is constructing what is seen with the eyes, then is really only constructing visual image. Okay, so the mental construction of a visual image of what was seen by the eye, and that is the sankara, the construction. Fabrication is a creation. You mix some chemicals together, and then somehow they create something different. So fabrication is making something different from combining different elements. So that is the meaning of fabrication. It is not fabrication. It is construction, putting it all together. Okay. And then it forms this, what was perceived by the mind. In the case of, to the visual system, it is a mental image of what was seen. So that is vijnana, the perception of this sense experience, what was seen, or they call it sense consciousness. In that sense, the word consciousness is correct to explain vijnana, but that consciousness is not mind consciousness, not awareness of other things other than that mental image, that image of what was seen with the eyes. So in this case, it's consciousness of what was seen by the eyes, right? Sense consciousness, not just consciousness. So vijnana itself is not consciousness, but you can call it perception, right? What was perceived, perception of sense experience. So that's the 5 aggregates. Before I go any further, wait, sorry, what else? Oh, this is not correct. What I'm showing here is the popular translations, not Bhante Punnaji's translation. This is common translations. Okay, so the common translation is form or matter. Right? For Rupa, Vedana is sensation, feeling. Sanya is perception. That's not perception. Sanya is sensation, sensory sensation. So this common translation is not what Bhante Punnaji explained. So I won't explain this further. But going back to this, I think that's all there is. So I won't explain this further. All right. Finally, the last question. So before I go, there's one question. Let me take a look at the chat first. Okay, in here, Sister Maylin earlier asked, can you please elaborate further on repressed memories? Is it also trauma or negative reactions to past events and so on? Sister Maylin, did I answer your question earlier on with all the explanations? Can you just confirm? Let me see if Sister Maylin. Yes, Sister Maylin is still here. Just type in.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. I'm using my phone, not my laptop. Yeah, so a bit not so used to the thing. Yeah, yes. Thank you very much, Brother Billy. Very
Okay,
clear
good.
explanation. Yeah,
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now to the next thing. The next one is from Vincent. What triggers the Vedana, or where did it originate? So I think I already explained that. Was it clear, Brother Vincent, earlier on about Vedana and Sanya? Brother Vincent?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. So I answered all those already. All right. Now question number 10. So all the labeling or categorizations mostly is acquired in our childhood, formation transferred by our parents. There is a point when the child starts developing desire for pleasant objects, more or less. How can help the child not increase lust or objects? Now, let me answer the first part. All labeling or categorization mostly is acquired in our childhood. Well, generally, you can say that, but actually, we have a lot of categorization going through in adulthood. not just childhood. Childhood is early part of well, I wouldn't say brainwashing, but it's sort of like a kind of conditioning from labeling and categorization. But as we grow up, we begin to mix with friends, we begin to go to school, we begin to expose to new things, and we have a completely new form of categorization. Today, it is very, very widespread, this new form of categorization beyond childhood. And that is because of the phone, social media addiction. People now scrolling through the phone, they start to learn new things, they start to categorize new ideas, they start to have all kinds of new conclusions, assumptions, judgments coming up long after childhood, right? So therefore, childhood is just a small part. With more and more technological influences, technology influence from technology, we become more and more reprogrammed in adulthood than from childhood, right? Okay, so all the labeling or categorizations mostly is acquired in our childhood, so transferred by parents. There's a point when the child starts developing desire and so on. How can we help the child not increase lust for objects? Now, teach the children that when you do something, it is to solve a problem, not to create one. So in other words, we eat food because we want to relieve hunger. Okay, some food tastes good, we can enjoy it, that's it. But don't eat food in order to satisfy appetite, right? In other words, eating it for the sake of enjoyment. In the same way, when we experience pain, we do something, let's say we got hit and then somebody just rubbed the hand, okay, now I feel more relaxed, reducing the pain, reducing the hurt. But not try to increase the pleasure going to a massage parlor and have someone spend 2 hours going through full body massage and all that. No, just because you got hurt by the hand, you don't go for a full body massage. Then you are indulging in pleasures. So teach children an action is there to solve a problem. Eat because to relieve hunger. And if it tastes good, it makes us feel good. That's it. But not chase after appetite satisfaction. Right? In the same way, do things to reduce suffering, not to provide enjoyment. So, in other words, if a child got a little hurt, rub the hand, or now the hand is more okay already. Okay, that's it. Stop. You don't have to ask the child, now sit on the massage chair and spend the next 45 minutes on the massage chair and getting a very good massage from it. No, it's things like that. Teach the child that doing something is to solve a problem, eating, drinking, or whatever. Not to satisfy appetite, not to increase pleasures, not to provide enjoyment. We enjoy the process, fine, but enjoyment is not the goal. Okay? But unfortunately, a lot of people indulge in enjoyment because enjoyment becomes what they chase after, chasing after enjoyment, chasing after appetite satisfaction, chasing after pleasures, right? I think a lot is common sense, right? Teach the child some in a way that you don't cling on to that experience, right? I'm not an expert in upbringing children, so my children are doing very well. I'm very happy to see that, and they are also doing a good job on their children. So my grandchildren are also doing well. I'm happy to see that too. But I'm not an expert in upbringing, so I really can't go further than that. But the important thing is to focus on the goal of what you're doing, and that is relieve hunger, reduce pain, reduce suffering. Let's say not chasing after satisfying appetite, increasing pleasures, or providing enjoyment. Okay, so there are many, many others, 1,000 other things also. That's all I can do. I think we have come to the end of all the questions. All right, so are there any more questions? Now we open to the floor to type in your questions, or if you want to speak, unmute and start asking. I've come to the end. Anyone else? Yes, Sister Pauline, go ahead.
Brother Billy, so Sati, Sampajanya, and Yoniso Manasikara are to make conscious the unconscious, leading to understanding how the nature of how our mind and body work, leading to enlightenment. Okay, how is that after it makes it the unconscious bringing it to the conscious, then so we understand our habits, our needs, our wants, and imaginations, our fears, worries. So once we bring it to the conscious, then we learn how not to react to them.
Yes, that's
We
right.
learn to respond. And from there, by also truly understanding, we develop right knowledge and eventually wisdom. Is that it?
Yes, practice right effort. Yes. So in other words, the being okay. We go back. That is very important. Let me go back. Let me go back to. Give me a moment to do the slides. I'll show you that particular slide, which is very important. Okay. I'll share the slide. Okay, this is the important one where those three things. Okay. When you have present moment awareness, it reduces the pink stuff disturbing you. It reduces the impact of the unconscious mind. That means when you engage in present moment awareness. Now, okay, one more thing I want to say about the mind. The mind can only focus on one thing at a time. The mind is not multitasking. A lot of people have this misunderstanding. Oh, I'm multitasking. I'm cooking, I'm making a cup of coffee, and then I'm talking on the cell phone, and then I'm also taking care of my little kid. You are not doing all four things at the same time. You are jumping one to another, back and forth. And by jumping back and forth one to another, you are not really paying attention to anyone particularly well enough. Okay. So the mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So when you have present moment awareness, your mind is very focused on what is happening right here and now. And in fact, because of that, you begin to have an understanding of what is going on, the clear comprehension. So sati is always followed by sampajana. When you have sati, gradually sampajana arises. You cannot have sampajana without sati. Okay, that's why they always say sati sampajana together. Rarely do we just talk about sampajana alone, sati sampajana. And when you have sati sampajana together, you have clear comprehension. You are able to understand cause and effect, karma vipaka. You're able to understand what is helpful to you, what is harmful to you. And that understanding leads you to realize not to engage in it. And that is yoniso manasikara. That is wise attention. You realize now you're able to discern. So you're right. These are the important things. When your mind engages in these sati sampajana, followed by yoniso manasikara, the mind completely no longer allows what is in the pink to disturb it. The mind is only focused on clear comprehension. This is also why Bande Punnaji explained we have to practice introspection, bring our mind inwards to be aware what we are observing, what we are experiencing. So it's an experiential thing. That's why I say it's experiential mindset. So bringing their mind inwards. Okay, I hope that is clear. Okay, Vincent. Yes,
Thank
Vincent,
you.
go ahead. Vincent?
Yeah, mental proliferation. Basically, we should always be to prevent it from happening. We should always be aware of the triggering thoughts, right? And then nip it in the bud. Is that how to prevent it?
Okay. Because you have sati, sampajana, we cannot control what is in the pink. They pop up from time to time. So in other words, the moment they pop up, but because you are practicing sati sampajana, you are, and that practice of sati sampajana can only be achieved by regular practicing of satipatthana. So because of that, you are aware that what is in the pink is starting to pop up to disturb you. Exactly what you say. You are right. Nip it in the bud. That means the moment it arises, let go. And I taught those techniques. Well, never mind. Don't fight it. When any of these unpleasant, unwholesome thoughts pop up, and you try to fight it by saying, go away, and try to force it out, it won't work, because it actually fights back. This is also relating to the Majjhima Nikaya number 18, the Vitaka Santana Sutra, where number 5, Bhante Punaji was saying, you have tension and then relaxation, tension, relaxation, not just tension. Everybody translate the number 5 as tension and force the thought out of your mind. That won't work. That actually makes it worse. So unfortunately, there is a big misunderstanding of Majjhima Nikaya number 18. My statement, not what Bande is saying, but I am saying a lot of people have a complete misunderstanding. Number 5 of this, the 5th method of this Vitaka Santana Sutra, Majjhima Nikaya 18, because they only focus on the tension part, thinking that forces the thought out. They don't realize there has to be a relaxation, and it is a continuous process. So in other words, when any negative thoughts arises, don't fight it. Just release it by, well, never mind. Or take a deep breath and then let it go. Letting go is the important thing. Letting go is the middle way. I hope that is clear, Brother Vincent.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I'm the one who says a lot of people mistranslated number 5 of this Vitaka Santana Sutra. Because, it's not right for a monk like Bhante Punaji to say people are wrong. Monks don't do that. But Bhante says, tension must have relaxation, tension, relaxation. But everybody overlooked or forgot or didn't realize there has to be a relaxation part, Okay, any other question? Anyone else before we end the session then, if there's no more questions?
Brother Billy,
Yes.
The word sati in the popular translation way, they say is concentration, or am I wrong?
No,
But it's
sati
not concentration.
sati is never used to mean concentration. It may have an implied meaning, but concentration is not right. You see, when you concentrate, your
Yes.
mind is tensed. Your mind is not relaxed. You must allow the mind to just relax and focus. Focus, not concentrate. So in other words, sati is really focusing, okay? I have a low battery warning, and I'm quite away from power plug because I'm sitting near the window. So if there are more questions, can we quickly deal with it now? Sister Maria, does that answer your question? Sati is
Yes,
not
thank you.
concentration. Yeah.
No, I read that somebody mentioned me that they were referring to sati as concentration, but I understood it's not what we have learned from Bante
Yeah,
Punaji.
precisely. It's present
Right.
moment awareness. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
And these are achieved through introspection. Bring your attention inwards. That's why in our group it's called introspect and relax. There's a good reason why we call that group introspect and relax. Any other questions? If we have none, then please post them in the group, in our WhatsApp group, or send me an email, or send me a private message. Voicemail, also easy for you to explain your question. Okay, so I think we end the session today. All right.